Hello and welcome back to the Comic Place, the place where we talk about comics. I'm Mike.
And I'm Vincent. And we've got some news. Let's get right into the news. We're going to do in reverse chronological order, so stuff that has been announced most recently. And we're starting off with Acts of Evil, which we have zero information on besides a potential logo and July 2019. And it's from Marvel.
I mean, it's the Mystery July event that they teased in that last photo they put out a few weeks ago, and it's just a classic vague Marvel teaser.
But there's already going to be events running. I think War of the Realms should be over by July. But then
I think it will be over by July.
Then Absolute Carnage is somewhere in there, and then the Hickman X-Men books are in there somewhere, and they have something scheduled for the winter as well. And so it's Marvel. Also, actually, one thing I didn't include in this roundup, but I'm putting it in the news right now. They also just announced some kind of like mini event involving the Savage Land with, I guess, 3 interlocking miniseries starring the Fantastic Four, the Guardians of the Galaxy, and the Silver Surfer, and the introduction of some dumb new character.
I mean, it's the Savage Land, so I don't care.
Marvel's putting out 1 billion books, and they've got 1 billion more on the ready. But the funny thing about Acts of Evil is the logo and Acts of, very reminiscent of the, I believe, 89 or 88 event Acts of Vengeance. And Acts of Vengeance was kind of a proto-Cabal. It was proto-Dark Reign, where all the villains kind of teamed up and they split up and traded off heroes. So it's like the concept was, all right, the X-Men always beat up Magneto, but what if Magneto fights this other character? Or what if Spider-Man has to fight like Count Nefaria or Graviton or some like Avengers villain or something like that. And you got some cool matchups, like I believe Daredevil fighting Ultron is during Acts of Vengeance. All the Spider-Man stuff is pretty great because for the Spider-Man books, they coincided with when he had the power cosmic, the Captain Universe powers. So all these powerful villains were coming at him, but he was beating the shit out of them. But the logo and the name is reminiscent of that, so you think it's probably and Acts of Evil, so it's probably villain related. Meanwhile, around the same exact time, DC is going to be doing Year of the Villains, which just makes them look stupid. This is like a Bug's Life Ants situation.
I mean, or you could just totally be wrong, and Acts of Evil is something completely.
I mean, yeah. And on that note, Year of the Villains is ramping up, and there's stupid variant covers and stuff like that.
Well, it's also weird because we're going to have Year of the Villain, and then Bendis is also gearing up for his Leviathan Strikes thing as well. So,
yeah. Other news: James Hudnall died. He is a writer from the 80s and 90s primarily. His big like breakout indie book, which I believe was initially published through Eclipse and then moved over to Marvel, published through Epic, and then eventually through Image. It's called Espers. And that was one of those like late 80s indie hits. And then he did a run on Alpha Flight at Marvel, not very much other like major big 2 stuff. And he was one of the major writers at the founding of the Malibu Ultraverse. And so rest in peace. Then we have Young Animal is back for another wave, even though I'm sure it was just a Bleeding Cool article, so it was just rumors and stuff, but I swear to God, like 2 weeks ago, I saw an article that was saying like Young Animal is officially dead, and if and when they reboot Doom Patrol, they'll just wrap it into Vertigo. Clearly not true. Doom Patrol is going to be back. Some other book, some cosmic book that I don't even remember or care about. And then there's a new Green Lantern.
Yeah. I'm sure these will be fine, and I'm sure Doom Patrol will still be good. I don't care about the new Green Lantern because we have enough of them.
Yeah. I mean, it's not 2814 at least.
Yeah, at least, thank God.
So it might be if they really lean into it, it might be crazy and cosmic and kind of cool. Ecstatics is coming back for, I think, just a one shot, a giant size issue, and this is in line with a lot of the anniversary stuff. I think the Wolverine and Hulk one shots, I think those might be called giant size Hulk, giant size Wolverine as well. So this follows that, and we'll probably get one or two of those every month until the year ends. We have an Invisible Woman miniseries announced, written by Mark Waid, drawn by Mattia Deulis, definitely mispronounced. I'm somewhat excited for this.
Yeah, I'm excited for this.
Waid can be very hit and miss past like 5+ years, but obviously has a history with the Fantastic Four and a strong knowledge of the characters and everything. And
I only wish the only thing that would have made this cooler was if Ringo was drawing it, but sadly he can't do that.
Yeah, that's not possible.
It's not possible.
And
maybe we'll get like a variant cover that was like maybe they found like in a storage bin or something, but it would have been cool if he was still alive to do it.
Yeah. And then from Boom, their Buffy line, which also not necessarily the same line, but their new version of the Whedonverse, they have a Buffy book, which is very successful, and they have a Firefly book. So they're launching an Angel book by Brian Hill and Gleb Melkonov, probably mispronounced. And it's a surprise announcement, surprise launch, because number 0 is out next week.
Yeah.
Mike, take it away. I assume you're going to read this.
I definitely am. Brian Hill has been a pretty competent writer. I'd say more than just that. I've enjoyed the stuff I've read from him. Angels, I always liked Angel, the show, more than Buffy, because I thought Angel was a little bit darker of a show and they could do a little bit more things with it. And it's a character I like. And I've been enjoying Jordi Belaire's Buffy the Vampire Slayer kind of reboot. I think I keep saying it's familiar but different at the same time. It's one of those reboots where you're like, oh, okay, it's the same but different, and I'm enjoying it. So I'm very excited to see what they're going to do with Angel, because next week will be the 4th issue, and Angel still hasn't shown up yet. And that's the number one. That's always the big thing of when's Angel going to show up. So I'm very cool. I think it's very cool that he's getting a book like right off the bat.
Yep. Of note, just for a weird reason, there's a new comics anthology book getting put out, and those come out every 2 days on Kickstarter and stuff like that. This one is called Dead Beats, and it's a anthology focused on horror and music and how those interact. But the big deal is that Rachel Pollack is coming back to write a story in it. She took over Doom Patrol following Grant Morrison and did a few other minor Vertigo stuff in the 90s, and I don't think she's written many comics since then. And I assume on the same story, because they kind of bundle them together, but Richard Case is also going to be in the anthology and probably drawing her story, and he was one of her collaborators and on Doom Patrol and drew pretty much all of the Grant Morrison run. Also, Renfamous is somehow involved in the anthology, and Renfamous, I'm not super familiar, but I believe she's basically like one of the leading like Twitter social media personalities that are anti-Comicsgate. And I'm not that familiar with her, but I didn't know she was a writer or artist or anything like that. Marvel they're trickling out a little bit of information, not really, on Hickman's 2 X-Men books, which I don't know that we've actually mentioned on this show.
We mentioned the announcement the week it happened, but we didn't do anything on the follow-up.
There's not much. They've like very ambiguously kind of explained the premise of each and how they're distinct, but I still don't know. Like, I can't tell you off the top of my head which is which and how they're actually going to interact and everything, but Marvel's claiming to put out new information.
Well, I mean, my thing, I've just kind of been on the cynicism riding through me tonight, but I'm like, I don't care about these books because they're clearly going to be retcons to history and time and like alternate universe things, and that probably aren't going to matter in the long scheme of things. So if you brought Hickman back to do that, but you weren't going to actually give him the reins to do anything that truly impacts much, it's kind of a nothing deal for me. Especially with Uncanny being in the shadow of Age of X-Men right now, and then it'll be in the shadow of this. I don't understand bringing back your flagship classic title and then always shoving it to the side of two other events that won't matter in the large scheme of things as they continue.
Yeah. And speaking of things that I guess do matter, War of the Realms is fucking humongous. And so coming out of it, there's going to be, it's like tie-ins, but I think they'll be after the full thing. There will be series, presumably miniseries, if that's not official, for Loki and Punisher.
Yeah.
And
If there was a Daredevil one, I was actually gonna read the first issue, but it looks like he's not getting one.
both of these are kind of annoying because we literally just saw Loki die on panel in the series. The first,
Yeah, the week of they announce a Loki book. Well, that takes out any. I mean, not that there was any actual like drama built up in that death, but like way to take any of the piss out of it with
yeah,
that.
and the Punisher book is him wearing a stupid like Skyrim helmet and killing trolls or whatever, and it's like that's I don't know. I feel that might even be farther than Frankencastle as far as putting.
It is just weird seeing the Punisher in a large scale Marvel U event. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I can't believe, by the way, issue 2 of War of the Realms is next week. So, if anything, at least this event is moving fast.
guess, but um, that means that retailers had to place the order for 2 issues before they knew how well issue 1 was going to sell. They probably had to. They
I'm
probably
sure
had,
it sold well because it's their big summer event.
yeah. Um, and then I think the last kind of news and less relevant than the other stuff based on our show is Idris Elba seems to be officially cast as Bronze Tiger for whatever the hell Suicide Squad movie James Gunn is making.
Great. Like
Yeah.
it this movie's still dead on arrival to me. You messed it up so bad the first time and now you're playing it off like you didn't do that. And we all know James Gunn ain't sticking around because the minute this movie's done, he's going to do Guardians again.
Yeah. It's very strange because they like I mean, part of it is that they're not actually announcing anything. It's just like the usual superhero clickbait hype machine where it's like, hey, we heard this one comment unsourced that's
Yeah.
a cool story. But like they keep going back and forth and unclear on is this a sequel? Is this a reboot? Because for a second we thought that Elba
He was
was
gonna be Deadshot.
Deadshot, but everyone has assumed, and I think they've sort of confirmed that Margot Robbie will return as Harley Quinn. So you're trying to like, if you're gonna try and do a reboot, but you're keeping your main character and the casting from the old one, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, what they're doing is they're keeping the elements they like slash I guess the fans or audiences like. So like Wonder Woman 84 is just basically going to be its own thing. It's not and they're not going to change Gal Gadot cuz they like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. So like that's what I heard for at least for that movie. So I don't Warner Brothers is playing pick and choose with what they want and it's a mess. It's still a mess.
Yep. All right, so we haven't done a haul segment in a little bit, and I'm just going to quickly flash through some books I picked up since then. I grabbed Robin Volume 4. Now I have 1 through 4. This is very cheap online in certain places, or at least it was.
I'm still gonna grab volume 2. I think I'm gonna stop after 3 because you said what after 3 is when it's basically just event tie-ins.
Um, I'm not certain where. Well, in this volume, there's some 0 Hour stuff, and yeah, Night's End. So yeah, I'd say after 3 maybe. Yeah,
I think that was my goal. I still gotta pick up volume 2.
lots of Nightfall times in here. And there are only 5 that they release, and then they've stalled. And then 2 out of print books that I managed to track down. I've got Jonah Hex, The Six Gun War.
Oh, the only 6-issue like story arc they did.
Yeah.
Uh, don't mean to rain on your parade, but it's not great.
And I have Power Roll Bomb Squad. This is half of Judd Winnick and Sammy Basri's run
Nice.
after Graham Palmiotti, the writers
I
of the previous book I showed.
heard Winnick's run's not bad.
Yep. It's pretty good. It ties in a bit with Generation Lost and Brightest Day and all that. And now I have Xenozoic by Mark Schultz. And this, other people may know this franchise better as Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, which some of the comics written and drawn by other people, they used that title. And there was a animated TV show and toy line and everything, which is really weird because similar to the Ninja Turtles, this started out as this like very artistic, like indie, like underground black and white comic. And this is a collection of all the stuff actually done by Schultz, and it's pretty great. The art's amazing, all about dinosaurs and shit. But the weird connection is that Mark Schultz in the early 2000s had a run on Superman, Man of Steel.
Ah,
And then I have Red Sonja, Ballad of the Red Goddess, which is written by Roy Thomas and drawn by Esteban Maroto. And it's got a cool Maroto's. He has a very like detailed European style, and they go black and white but red on like blood and accents and stuff like that. And it's on oversized like European album format because I believe it was originally intended for European market but was brought over here. So into the books. Our retro issue for this week is Fantastic Four, number 84. So to run through what happens, this is Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, Joe Sinnott on inks. And the Fantastic Four is coming back from spending some time with the Inhumans in the last arc. At this point in time, the Inhumans are hidden in the mountains rather than on the moon or anything like that. And Crystal is with them instead of Sue. This is the era where Johnny Storm is dating Crystal. Crystal's a member of the Fantastic Four. And at this exact moment, the Invisible Girl, still at this point, is taking a little break because Franklin has just been born.
okay.
They get flagged down by Nick Fury, and Nick Fury shows them a disembodied robot hand, which goes wild, and it like heads in the direction of Crystal, so Johnny freaks out and destroys it. And Nick Fury's like, "You fucking asshole. We were going to have Tony Stark analyze that." And Ben Grimm is like, "Hey, get off my man's back."
Well, not only does Nick Fury show up, they like Nick Fury from S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, don't we even get like the original acronym spelled out too? Like everything. I love reading it because like it's so fleshed out. Everyone still is who they are, even so early on. Well, I mean, this is 84 issues in, but still.
And in the subplot is there's a scientist trying to escape a castle, but he gets held up and shot by Doctor Doom. And that's really I think our only splash page in this issue is a great shot of Doctor Doom holding a gun with some robot guards behind him.
I mean, there's a lot of good Doom stuff going on in this, but also we get a good Thing clobbering time moment too.
And so the FF, they head off to Latveria to just show up, and they're supposed to intentionally get captured, but Johnny goes off course again because they grab Crystal first, and Crystal's going along with the plan, but Johnny is a hothead, and so then they just roll with the punches, but they're defeated because someone throws a giant bomb filled with gas at the Thing, and the Thing's like, "Well, there's a giant bomb, let me punch it." And of course it just activates the bomb. I thought it was interesting to see Doctor Doom wearing a gas mask instead of.
I liked that though. It was cool.
Yeah, you might assume like that his mask has different filtration things and everything like that.
Well, it also looks awesome because he's almost in silhouette, and he just looks really menacing. Is like the background behind him is like red and yellow.
Yeah, that one panel is really good. And so the Fantastic Four, they wake up in satin sheets and room service, and they go outside in the streets of Latveria to celebrate Fantastic Four Fiesta Day. And Reed tries to run for the border, but is stopped, of course. And to be continued in the next issue, which we will not be reading.
Well, no one escapes from Latveria, Vince.
What did you think of this?
I like this a lot. Kirby's arts, while he's getting to like, there's a lot of just simple 4 panels per page. I still think it's really, really good.
Yeah, it's great. I think this is pretty close. Let me see if I can check really quickly. I think this is pretty close to the end of the third omnibus, which is as far as Marvel has collected in
Yeah.
omnibus format.
One of these days, I will delve in and read all of them. But I think my favorite panel in this book is the one where Doctor Doom is just sitting on his throne talking about how the Fantastic Four suspects nothing.
Yeah, the next issue, to give everyone a tease if they want to go read it, there's a scene of a portrait painter painting Doctor Doom without his mask on, but you don't see it, of course.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I believe the third omnibus ends at Fantastic Four 87.
Oh, all right. So like, yeah, right near the end.
So next week we'll be reading. We came up on an indie book in July 1987, and we'll be reading Elementals number 15, written by Bill Willingham, years before Fables.
Or his Robin run.
Yeah, so that should be exciting, especially jumping in at issue 15.
We're gonna not know anything that's going on.
Yeah, we're gonna be pretty clueless.
It's gonna be like when I was reading Section 0 last week.
Yep.
That was even worse than number 1.
Yeah, that was a 1. So now
it was a 1, but I still felt out of place.
Yeah. Now into our new books of the week. We've got 2 indie books to run through. Faithless number 1. This is from Boom, oddly. I wouldn't necessarily expect this to be from them. I'd expect an Image
It's
book.
weird because it looks like the cover look and like the font with the trade dress looks like it's like one of Brubaker's crime books. It looks like Fatal.
Yeah. So this is Brian Azzarello and Maria Levette. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. Her only major work before this is a Black Mask series, which I've never heard of, a miniseries. So she's very new, unless she was doing like web comics or some kind of like fan art or anything like that before. But I was really impressed with her, actually.
She was the only positive thing I really have to say about this book.
I think she does clothing really well, which is very difficult for a lot of comic book artists. And particularly because a lot of the characters, even more so, a lot of the characters in here are women. So you have more varied clothing choices and everything. Whereas most artists can't even draw like a suit correctly.
Yeah, I thought her art was fantastic.
And
coloring was great too.
Yeah. And to spoil a little bit, and I'll get to this in more gruesome not gruesome, but in more gripping detail later, I thought the art in Maria Levette, I thought she did the sex scene pretty well as far as the angles and also how it's paced.
Yeah.
All things considered for a comic book.
Everything in the art was fantastic.
So the other big deal with this series is that it has a not safe for work variant cover by Tula Lotay.
Oh, does it?
And apparently the variant outsold the primary cover. But Boom never revealed the variant online. Bleeding Cool ran it for a minute, but then got contacted by Boom and uncharacteristically said, "Yeah, sure, we'll take it down because you guys were nice about it."
Oh, wow.
And so I haven't seen this cover. I need to head to my comic shop and see if they have it. I think it's black bagged, but if they somehow still have a copy on the stands, I'm gonna buy this.
By
And
the way,
so
we should say this is Faithless, an erotic depiction of faith, sex, and the devil, and the tradition of the divine comedy.
yes. And so this issue really leaving an impression off the bat, opening with some female masturbation.
Yep. It's
And
like jumping right into it.
our main character, Faith, we catch up with her in a coffee shop. She's trying to do spells or some shit. She's basically everyone in this book is kind of a not not beating you over the head or like super ridiculous, but everyone here is a hipster in the coffee shop. She spills her coffee on a chick who then rips off her shirt and reveals that she's wearing a lace bra. And I guess because this is what happens when you accidentally spill things on people, it happens like this in movies too. Suddenly you become best friends or start dating. So they go day drinking together. And as they leave the coffee shop, the new girl character, and her name is Poppy, um, her like ex-boyfriend or something is being clingy and trying to fix things. And so then in the bar, they watch him jump off a building and commit suicide
Yeah.
with some exaggerated like blood splatter as he hits the ground.
Yeah, like I said, it's kind of played for a dark comedy in the way that it happens.
Yeah. And then our main character pickpockets a guy so they can grab some money. But
Well,
I
they
don't
want to get in, but they're out of money.
yeah, but like I don't know why they need money because then Poppy takes Faith back to her apartment. She has a humongous studio apartment. Um, and I assume they're in a major city like New York or even Portland or anything like
Well,
that.
they needed to buy another bottle of wine.
That apartment is probably pretty expensive. And I guess everyone draws or paints her because she's so attractive and has some kind of like alluring aspect to her.
Yeah.
And then back to the real action. They jump in the shower together and they have sex on the ground. And suddenly Poppy, the new girl, turns into, I guess, slugs. Is that how you saw it?
I thought it was like slugs or maggots, and then possibly like confetti. It's kind of vague in what she turns into.
She turns into something, and I guess this is where, in the following issues, we'll get into some of the actual magic bullshit.
Yeah.
And who knows? I thought the art was great.
Yeah.
It's totally not a story that I'm interested in, so I'm not going to read this ever again.
I was gonna say like not. I was gonna ask sticking with it. I think you just answered that question.
Nope.
Yeah, same.
Now, a more interesting book, Savage Dragon number 243.
I mean, I did not read Savage Dragon 243,
So
but I still thought Faithless was pretty interesting. So, how is this more interesting?
I'll catch you up. So I read this because it seemed somewhat one-off. It was like the marketing text and the cover. It was like one of the current Savage Dragon, Malcolm Dragon, the son of the original Savage Dragon. One of Malcolm Dragon's kids is basically on a solo adventure, which is kind of not really what happens. And as I discussed on previous shows, I believe like on the Clone Saga show, because I force these kinds of segments everywhere, I'm collecting various 90s books and intending to custom bind some of them.
Well, I just want to stop you real quick. Now, I don't need to have a rundown, nor do the people watching the show need to have a rundown of the past 242 issues of Savage Dragon.
No, I'm not going to do that. Mostly because I don't know, but I do intend to try and custom bind Savage Dragon up to a certain point because the reprints are really iffy and not in color, and there's also guest appearances and like crossover stuff, which isn't done well.
Did they not do compendiums for Savage Dragon? I know they did one for Spawn.
They do Savage Dragon archives, but they're black and white.
Yes, and the Spawn compendium they released probably almost a decade ago at this point.
Yeah.
Was also in black and white.
And apparently part of the challenge with Savage Dragon and a lot of like indie 90s books is that this is the beginning of digital coloring. But since it was the beginning of digital coloring and totally different file formats, programs, computer devices, and everything like that. So the color files for these early 90s indie books, apparently a lot of them, the color files are lost or like unreadable and stuff like that.
Oh
So
no.
so it's way more complicated to reprint stuff out in color, because actually in many cases what you'd have to do is scan the comic books themselves and then fix up the color, or scan the original art and recolor and stuff like that. And so I'm not sure that we can expect Savage
I
Dragon.
don't think Todd is going to be recoloring all of Spawn. I think
Well,
Intern's going to have to do that.
no, Spawn is fine because
Spawn's fine.
yeah, Spawn has been in color and everything like that. But like Savage Dragon, I'm not sure what else, but I've heard that story on a few other books. And so what happens here, and again, I've read also basically no other Savage Dragon. I've read like the initial miniseries that introduced the character, and then like maybe 2 or 3 other issues, just because I was like, oh wow, I've heard this art in this issue is insane. So let me flip through it and not read the words. So a worm thing attacks Malcolm Dragon's wife and kids while he's dealing with some villain named Ant, who's a recurring villain. And there's like 5 references to this worm thing potentially being something or some creature's penis, or they're just jokes. But the thing is, Eric Larson is crazy, and there's like 5 of these references that I don't know what to trust. So it could be like a disembodied, alive penis of a giant monster or demon, and I wouldn't know. But this worm thing tries to eat the youngest child, the baby, but some of the kids have powers as well, and so she like shocks it, and everyone's fine. We get a bunch of supporting characters that I'm entirely clueless about, and then another superhero who I guess is kind of sort of supposed to be like a Superman insert or something like that. He shows up with a reprogrammed perfect woman. And what I gather from the narration context clues is that these perfect women are sex dolls, like programmed sex dolls that were programmed to try and kill Malcolm Dragon. So one of them has been reprogrammed to act as his nanny, and so he's just like, all right, sure. And so now this family has a reprogrammed sex doll nanny. And in previous issues, at some point, Malcolm Dragon and his wife had crazy public sex at some point. I don't know how that happens, but apparently it was recorded on live television or something. And so then the wife, and I forget her name. I want to. It's not Amy because that's the kid. I forget her name, but she takes Amy or her daughter to like a pool party, like one of her friends, and all the other parents are like commenting on her sex tape, her accidental sex tape, and it's really weird. But then the kids run off and they catch a burglar in this house, and so the daughter Amy just beats the shit out of this burglar and destroys the entire house in like 3 blocks. And that's basically it. That's what kind of the cover and the marketing promised, is that more of this like little kid doing shit. That's only really like a third of the book, but it was still pretty fun. And the issue ends with an off-panel sex scene between Malcolm Dragon and his wife. And so what I gather is this, it's just a really very strange book now. It's literally just Eric Larson doing whatever the fuck he wants.
Okay.
There's
Sticking with it.
also, there's also a Super Patriot and Mighty Man backup that I didn't feel like reading, but the art is really gorgeous. It's not by Larson, but it's kind of like a mix between like a Larson.
Larson did the story, not the art.
What?
Larson did the story, but not the art.
Yeah. He wrote the backup, but didn't draw it. But it looked really cool, but I didn't feel like reading it. And also in Savage Dragon, Larson, just since basically the very beginning, he's included other people in backups or written stories for them with different artistic styles and like comic strip kind of formats and everything like that. And he also does a very long letters page. I mean, and also Savage Dragon is $2.99. And so if I had somehow been keeping up with this for 242 issues, I would say Savage Dragon is a very great package for your value. If you like Larson's art and you're in for this crazy ride, I have major respect for this comic. But now let's talk about some books people care about, Mike.
Yeah, Batman 68, which
Best-selling comic.
what
Best-selling comic on the stands.
is it?
Yeah, Batman outsells everything.
All right. I mean, I didn't think it was outselling some others, but um, like I would be surprised if Batman's outselling War of the Realms.
Well, I don't really count that, but it
Yeah.
might be anyways.
Um, but this is drawn by Amanda Connor. This is a part of the Nightmares arc, which I think finally ends next issue. But this is more or less a follow up to the Super Friends double date story back in like issues 24 and 25. Like issue, I think in the 30s, maybe it was like somewhere in the 20. I think it was like 26, 27. The team up with Superman and Lois Lane, where they go to the fair. But this follows up on it. Lois and Selena go to the Fortress of Solitude. Supergirl takes them, and Bruce and Clark have a dinner. Um, and it's just Lois and Selena bonding. As comedy ensues because they end up getting into the very extensive alcohol cabinet that the Fortress of Solitude has because now Superman does not drink alcohol, but he's been gifted alcohol the many times he saved the world over. So I thought that was pretty funny that the Superman robots are there and they ask if the Fortress of Solitude has alcohol. They're like, no, but we do have all this ceremonial stuff. And they dig into that. And then Superman and Batman are in Wayne Manor. They're having some soup. The soup apparently is very good. We get another Gotham Knights gag that Tom King has been doing with the Gotham Knights quarterback is trash. Um, and as they're watching a game, and then the nightmare stuff happens in this when Bruce and Clark are sitting down in Bruce's study, and he kind of positions the Batman like the reason why she left you on the altar is because deep down, like you don't like you can't live with yourself if you're happy. So a little bit digging into that stuff. And I thought that was pretty good. And then at the end of this issue, it's revealed that Batman has been plugged into this giant machine as he's getting fear toxin pumped into him, and most likely by Bane, is because we know City of Bane is happening soon.
Is that how most of the Nightmare issues have ended, or most of them don't acknowledge it?
Most of them just kind of end. This is the first one in a while that I've seen that acknowledges it.
Okay.
I did like the scene at the end before the big reveal of Batman strapped the machine with Superman and Batman go into the fortress to pick up the girls, and that was a sweet moment to it.
Yeah,
But Superman
because
positions Batman. You hate being Batman, but you love that you have to be Batman. And Superman says because it's kind of the other way around. He likes being Clark Kent and he hates being Superman.
But I mean, this totally could work as a continuity insert, like as a bachelorette party before the
Yeah.
wedding.
No, that's what it is. It's kind of it's Selena's bachelorette party with Lois at the Fortress of Solitude, and
Well,
Bruce is hanging out with Clark.
well, potentially. That's the thing with the nightmares.
No, they say kind of bachelorette party in this issue.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying, did this actually happen?
Well, that's the question to get into. Did this happen? Because I know wasn't there one of the whole like Road to the Wedding one shots was Batman's bachelor party.
Yeah.
So, like I said, Nightmares can kind of do whatever it wants, but also kind of act as like these nice follow ups to other things in King's Run and pull from it. I know you're asking if you could jump into this. I'd say maybe hold up. I'd say give issue 69. I think maybe the time to start.
Well, I read like 75% of this actually.
Yeah.
Which is to say that not that I like stopped with a few pages left. I just wasn't paying like 110% attention. But my main takeaway is that there's some great character moments, and again, they potentially mean absolutely nothing, but whatever.
Yeah.
And the Amanda Connor art is fantastic
Yeah, she's really, really good here.
and works perfectly for this specific story.
I like the cover too.
Yeah, I mean, I really love Amanda Connor's art, and I wish we could somehow see more of it on a regular basis and everything like that. I mean, obviously, not a fan of the current version of Harley Quinn and everything like that, and a lot of that
Well,
is,
she's only on the cover of this, but yeah.
yeah, a lot of that is, I mean, the current version of Harley Quinn, somewhat based on directive, but essentially reinvented by Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor. But even though that I don't like the character, if Amanda Connor had actually drawn like a very significant amount of that run, I would at least be somewhat intrigued. Like, hey, I want to flip through this at some point. But it just the covers for most of it, I believe. But I'm a big fan of her art.
Yep.
Um, so was I talking detective or were you talking detective?
You want to take detective? I mean, I can help out. I mean,
All right. So Detective Comics 1001. This is following up on like a short part of 1000.
well, the last story of 1000.
Yeah. The Tomasi run continues, and this is the Arkham Knight crap.
I guess
And
first things first. Book has a new logo. How do you feel about it? I'm not a fan.
yeah, not really. I don't like it. I think the color, the aspect of the colors is kind of weird.
Yeah, it's that really bright blue and yellow. It's weird.
It looks like the logo for like a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, which is weird to bring this up because I think Brad Walker's art would work perfectly for a Saturday morning cartoon.
Um, yeah, though I would like Doug Monkey back.
I feel like he'll be back, but man, if it's a switch off between Mankey and Brad Walker, I'm more than fine with that
Yeah. So
because their faces are very similar in style, so it's not that big of a difference.
all of the bats in Gotham suddenly drop dead,
Yeah.
uh, which initially we just see in a park, but then it's hilarious to see in the Bat Cave just hundreds of bats dead. It's kind of fucked up too.
Yep.
And Bruce dissects 56 of them to try and figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
definitely
now Eastman calls Gordon. And he's like, "Can you bag up a couple of yours, by the way, and send them over here?"
a neurotic motherfucker. And so all the bats are dying. So of course he goes to check up on Man Bat. But and this is kind of weird, I guess, because it implies that he's checking on Man Bat, but it's not really specific because then he later acknowledges and knows that Man Bat is with the Justice League Dark. So he really meets up with Francine Langstrom, Man Bat's wife, who has been
But
turned
also
in,
a scientist. So
yeah, and who has gone through the transformation before in the past. I mean, there was a whole era. I think this is like late 70s, early 80s, or whatever. In Batman family, there were a bunch of Man Bat stories, and I believe for some of that, there was like a whole Man Bat, like all of his family became Man Bats. Similar, in fact, to some of what the Lizard is dealing with in
hey,
Spider-Man books at this
Man
time.
Bat used to live in the Batcave. He would just like show
Yeah.
up because Neil Adams like drawing him.
And so Francine Langstrom transforms herself and then freaks out. She's like bleeding from her ears the entire
Yeah,
time.
it's weird, but man, that splash page is gorgeous.
And Bruce just fixes her and then leaves her unconscious body, I think, like on top of a building or something. Or I think I think he is like Alfred, you got to pick her up or something.
He alerts. Yeah, he leaves her in the zoo, the Gotham Zoo, and alerts the EMS to come pick her up.
And then someone shoots like a giant, humongous, uber powerful flare in the sky.
Yep.
And we get a Bob Kane reference. There's some building or something named after Bob Kane. And then Batman fights a bunch of stupid looking knights. I thought the design in these was kind of dumb.
Yeah. Well, the issue begins more or less with this order of knights launching their, I guess, their crusade against Batman. It's almost like the Order of Saint Dumas. That's like I get strong vibes from them, but they're never like always out to get Batman. But think
Well,
similar.
yeah, it's Saint Dumas, a little bit of Corvallis, a little bit of other things like, and so he fights a bunch of them, and the Arkham Knight shows up and curb stomps him, and then
Yeah.
it ends. and he kind of does his quick soliloquy and everything like that. But it's like I'm interested. I guess I'm interested to see more, if only to like see how this is actually different from other things. Because so far, this is very similar to a lot of other Batman stories on the
Yeah.
surface. It's got
It
a little
was
bit
cool to
of
see
night.
Batman trying to fight a bunch of knights as he's getting shot full of arrows, and like he throws his weapons at him, they just bounce off, and he's like, "Well, that's not good."
Yeah. It's
But
all right.
yeah, it's okay.
I don't know. I guess I'll keep reading this. I'm not sure. I'm gonna try and probably jump back on Tom King Batman, and so I don't know if I can handle two at the same time. But
I mean, I still think Tom King's Batman's been the better has been the better Batman book.
yeah, what I'm saying is that's what I meant. Is I'm gonna
Yeah.
try and jump back on Tom King, and so I may end up dropping Detective. But Mike, wrap up our DC segment for us so we can get to the fun company.
Hey, both of these companies are making books we like right now. I'm not going to choose sides, but I will say with Marvel publishing a lot more books, that's why we cover a lot more of their books on the show. But last DC book, it's Wonder Twins #3 by Russell and Byrne still, and
John
it's
Byrne.
all about no, not John Byrne. Could you imagine if John Byrne drew this? Be crazy. Um, this issue kind of is all about Gleek, the monkey, who was kind of introduced in the last issue. But the Wonder Twins are asking Superman how they can kind of keep a happy face, knowing that like there's everything is horrible in the world, and are they really making a difference? There's a nice Superman moment where he says, "Seeing everything in the world wrong with this world and somehow not going crazy is one of the strengths of being a hero." And there's the Zan and Janus still are on their track of trying to learn how to be better superheroes. We get a moment with Lex Luthor hiring out this scientist as he sends them to the League of Annoyance, and the Scrambler has a great plan, which is to go to this dinner party and change places with the President of the United States, and boom, the League of Annoyance now runs the entire country. But they don't have $5,000 to send him to that dinner, so it's scrapped. And the Scrambler smashes his head on a table and leaves because he says, "This is terrible." But the League of Annoyance hatched their plan to get the Wonder Twins, and it's trapping them in plastic bags while they sleep because they found out where they live. And because I guess plastic bags are the weakness. I don't know if this is a thing from the cartoon or not. It might be. But Gleek is the one who saves them. As we get his backstory, as he was a circus monkey who was abused, and he basically fights his fears as he goes through his whole routine as a monkey in the circus to and saves the Wonder Twins. And yay.
Yeah, I don't really regret not reading this.
Still continues to be fun. There's some funny stuff going on here. But I'd say the weakest issue so far.
Okay. Age of Conan Bleat #2. I decided I'm going to continue with this series. It's just a mini series, so we'll see how far I continue. Our goth pirate princess commandeers her father's ship to fight the sea monster, which we left off with last issue. And the other ship gets damaged in the process, but the sea monster fucks off, chills out, and she gives herself a makeover with a bunch of gold, and so she starts to look like the Belit we know from the Conan comics. And then she intentionally puts the ship off course to go back to the monster, and then essentially takes over being captain and starts bullying around the adults. And they burn the Leviathan to death, and in the process, the other ship, which isn't her father's, gets destroyed. And so then their plan is, let's go to one of these coastal villages or whatever, and we're going to either intimidate orcs and or extort the leaders by showing them this corpse of, or bragging about killing a sea monster. And it turns out the queen of this place can control sea monsters. And so this is the second issue in a row where the final page tease is, oh no, a sea monster, which is kind of the point of the book, I guess. But it's still like, it's not great, but it's kind of fun. She has a very annoying, but in like a charming way, attitude, and it's pretty solid. What about Spider-Man? We've got a little Spider-Man corner to do after we did Batman.
Yeah, it's funny. The two biggest heroes in comics get a little corner. It's part 3 of Hunted. This event continues, picking up where the last issue left off. We get a little bit of mourning over a little bit more mourning of the Gibbon, but before that, this issue does open up with a continuation of Black Cat and the Lizard's son, who are still trapped. And the Black Cat is able to finagle herself out as she managed to sick a giant saber-toothed tiger, or no, it's a snow leopard on one of the guards, and she does it right in front of the kid. So then he's scared to leave, which rightfully so. But the cloned son of Craven is asking why they haven't made their move yet, and Craven's just kind of, he's still keeping all of his cards to himself, and he's like, "It's not time yet. It's not time yet." But it's building. By the way, I should also say that it's not Humberto Ramos or Ryan Otley drawing this issue. It is Hernando Sandoval. I really liked the art in this again. Same thing I said earlier about Detective Comics, where this could be an animated series. This is kind of a perfect blend between Ramos and Otley, and I really liked the expressive, kind of strong jaw lines you give Spider-Man here. It looked very kind of reminiscent. I like the big Todd eyes too. I really like the Spider-Man. We get the Todd webbing and some splash pages. Really, really good, vibrant action art here, I felt. But Spider-Man meets up with the Vulture and the rest of the villains, and he's like, we kind of get a "we have to work together" moment. As the Vulture is, by the way, the Vulture flat out lies about how the Gibbon dies, and that's when Spider-Man shows up to stop it. I liked that. But the Vulture has taken apart one of these remote control, I guess, VR hunters, and kind of saying he found the weakness to him. You get a great moment with the Rhino calling back to earlier in Amazing Spider-Man of how Spider-Man ran off, and that's how he got captured. I like how we get a call back to here. As we said a few weeks ago, we knew this confrontation was coming, and as Spider-Man kind of leaps around, the Black Ant shows up to confronts him, and he's like, well, "You don't know the full story of this place." But also, we get cut back to Arcade and Taskmaster, as Taskmaster has captured the Lizard and now brought him into Central Park to be unleashed. And I'm sure we'll get a follow up to this very soon, if not next week. I don't know the release dates right off the top of my head. And the next HUSU, because it's the Lizard.
Yeah, that's next week. So first of all, one point that I thought of is that Hunted, it kind of doubles as basically another version of Scourge. Scourge was a Mark Gruenwald concept in his Captain America run, where let's have this mysterious villain and he's going to kill a bunch of other villains, like D tier villains. And Hunted essentially gives you the same opportunity, where it's like dumb villain that is just taking up space and no one really wants to write about. We'll just kill him in this story for effect, and then he's off the board. And so obviously Gibbon died, and that was a bigger deal. But Mandrill, Mad Dog,
yeah, Guana's dead too.
yeah, Gazelle, Manbull, bunch of no names. They're all dead. The other thing that I thought was interesting, well, first of all, that lizard splash page is really, really great looking.
Yeah, it's good.
And then my last thing that I wanted to point out is that someone in the letters page asked about Craven's appearances in Squirrel Girl and how those like match up with this, and the editor just kind of brushes it off. And it's like, no shit, there's no fucking continuity.
Well,
But
yeah, because remember, War of the Realms is happening the same time this is happening. It makes no sense.
but this was a strong issue.
I really like the cover to the next Amazing Spider-Man issue, um, with the son of Kraven fighting the Lizard. It's a really cool cover with Spider-Man in the background.
Oh, also, I think Lizard was purposely captured. I think he let himself get captured.
You think?
Yeah, that's my theory.
What do you think Black Ant has in store for Spider-Man? Because I'm sure it's a trap.
No, I think he's just gonna help him because he got
Because he got double crossed by Taskmaster.
yeah.
I do like this, how the villains are kind of double crossing. We got a lot of moving parts here. I felt like a lot of kind of moving parts were set up in this issue, too. Like it felt like kind of rapid beat, and with the way the story's going is you got to constantly keep moving because there's these VR hunters after you. I like that pacing.
Yep. Now let's flash back like 35 years.
What's funny because Spider-Man is wearing the black suit and Hunted, and now we have Symbiote Spider-Man where he's wearing the black suit. But the only difference is this isn't a cloth version.
Yep. Symbiote Spider-Man #1, written by Peter David, and Peter David is writing that Savage Land Fantastic Four series. And the art here is by Greg Land, and this is a flashback continuity insert. The title page is really cool. They essentially use the
I
secret.
like bringing the logo of this book brings back the old Web of font and repurposes it for Symbiote. I like that as well.
Yeah. So first weird thing / criticism is that this issue uses like kind of a chapter system where it's like 3 days
It's a
before,
very old way of writing comics.
and the pacing and how they transition in and out of those and order and everything, I thought it was a little rough. And also within the first few pages, Greg Land gives himself a shout out in the art where he puts his name on something in the background. And if you watch the Clone Saga, I've made reference to this a couple times. I'm not a fan of that. Don't give yourself a shout out. You can do a shout out to Ditko or even your writer, but don't shout out yourself. And so we have Mysterio in the black suit, and this lines up sort of. But what doesn't line up is suddenly Quentin Beck, Mysterio, looks like he's in his late 20s.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he doesn't look like Jake Gyllenhaal, but they're trying to retroactively de-age him.
I'd say Spider-Man looks more like Jake Gyllenhaal in this book than Mysterio.
Another cool thing is that we get 2 footnotes in this book.
Yeah, there's footnotes galore in this book.
Now, one of these is kind of complicated because Mysterio's meeting with someone who I don't care about, and and they make a joke about Power Pack. And then it's like footnote, Mysterio gets beat up by Power Pack in Power Pack 55. But that, based on when this issue should happen, that hasn't happened yet. So it's not like a contemporary footnote. It's a current footnote, and it's done in a joking way. It's slightly different, but it's still kind of cool.
I thought it works here.
Mysterio tries to rob a bank, but someone gets shot accidentally. So
Well, yeah. The clerk accidentally gets shot, but the way he goes about this is he floods the place with gas and he gives the clerk a gas mask, and it's directly the same thing as what happens in Batman '89 with the Joker and Vicky Vale, which was like, I felt like since this is trying to, but it's weird to see that callback here. I mean, though I know the black suit was a thing of the '80s, this feels like retroactively, time-wise, this has to be the '90s now, right? With sliding timescales.
fresh sliding timescales. This is probably like 2005 at the earliest.
Yeah. But I felt like, at least from some of the looks, more '90s than '80s. But one of the things that does annoy me in this book, art-wise, other than Greg Land's bad-looking faces here and there, are that he draws cars like the same model they are now.
Yeah, I didn't. That didn't stand out to me for whatever reason, but I don't doubt you. That's another big challenge for artists. A lot of artists suck at drawing cars, children, clothing, horses.
Yeah.
But then I guess once the woman gets shot, Mysterio just pussies out. Like he still could have taken the money, and I
Yeah.
don't think he does. And then there's this big moment, and they talk about it a ton on the letters page. So I think it's supposed to be like the focal, like wow moment, and it kind of was, where Spidey is running up the side of a building and then leaps across to another building, and then it zooms out, and it's the Twin Towers, the World Trade Center.
It's a beautiful splash page.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting page. And then Spidey, one of his quips, he makes a joke about, "Hey, no one would want to go to a Spider-Man Broadway musical." It's funny, of course, because Spider-Man had a Broadway musical.
Yep.
And then the Human Fly shows up, and the Human Fly steals Everd Munch's The Scream painting, and that's basically it. It's just an excuse to have like 4 pages of Spider-Man fighting a villain. It doesn't really connect with stuff. And then Felicia Hardy, as Felicia Hardy, not Black Cat, breaks into Pete's apartment,
Yeah.
and we get a footnote to Peter Parker 91 related to the black suit and everything. And this scene is really where you start to see that Land's expression work is terrible. Um, I think his Felicia Hardy in isolation and Peter Parker, like they don't look bad. It's the way they react to each other and everything like that. And there's one panel in particular, it might be in a later scene, but there's one panel where Felicia Hardy acts like surprised or shocked, and she just has like her mouth wide open, and it's super distracting. And so Felicia is like, all right, yeah, I don't really like Peter Parker. I just like Spider-Man because I'm a freak. But you think that's annoying, so I'm going to try and hang out with you as Peter and try and get to know you a little better. And so Pete, as the perfect date idea, decides, oh, let's go see my uncle's grave.
Well,
And
it's the anniversary of his death.
well, is that even said? I don't think
Yes.
it is.
Yes, it is.
Okay. And
That's why he's trying to not that's why he was trying to get out of hanging with Felicia, because he's like, I got something to do today.
and just pure coincidence, Quentin Beck happens to be right next to them because the woman that got shot at the bank is buried like 2 rows over from Uncle Ben, and he freaks out and leaves because I don't know why. Um, Pete, like, no, Felicia Hardy reminds him of the dead woman. So he leaves, but Pete recognizes him because he knows who Quentin Beck is. So then he chases him as Spider-Man. And I thought this scene was the most interesting part, where basically Quentin is like bummed the hell out, and he's like, "Yeah, I really want to reform. I'm done with this superhero shit. I'm going to start up a special effects company." But Pete just beats him up after acknowledging, "Hey, my spider sense didn't go off." But he doesn't question it too much because, as Mysterio, when he's actually being villainous, he always figures out a way to get around the spider sense. And Pete finally figures that out at the end. He's like, "Wow, I just beat up Mysterio for no reason." And I thought it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, it's very similar to the Gibbons backstory,
Yeah.
which is relevant in the present set books. And then the big deal here is that Felicia meets Aunt May, who happens to also be shown up to her husband's grave on the anniversary. And I'm not super familiar with this era of Spider-Man, like the Black Suit era between Roger Stern and the McFarlane kind of era. So I don't know how this matches up. Maybe this is just earlier than when it actually happened. Maybe this is a giant retcon the first time we're seeing this. But I think Felicia Hardy meeting Aunt May is a big deal. But
Okay.
also, I don't think it's really like it kind of closes here, and I don't think it necessarily is going to come back. But it could potentially be a big deal. Um, so that's Symbiote Spider-Man.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. I mean, well, it wasn't. I mean, nothing great. I
Yeah,
mean,
I was expecting way worse based on Greg Land, and I think Peter David has been kind of inconsistent / mediocre on certain projects for the past like few years, but it was fine.
Well, well, here's just some possible interesting math thrown out here. So the World Trade Center is in this book, correct? So it's got to be 2001
Shit.
max. So that's 17 years ago, or right?
No, you just can't think too hard because it doesn't work because Peter Parker
So
has not,
Peter Parker starts his career at 15. He'd have to be 32.
but he's clearly not 15 in this issue. He
No.
has to be. He's out of college in this issue, I would say.
Well, no, it's yeah. I mean, well, no. If so, he'd have to start his career in the eight. Yeah, it just breaks your head if you think about it.
Yeah, I think he's at least out of college, so he's at least like 22 in 2001. And so then you add 18 years, and that's way too old for Spider-Man, according to Marvel at least. So it
Well,
doesn't
he's
make sense.
intrinsically been stuck. He got to be like 28 for like 5 minutes with JMS, and then he's been pretty much retroactively stuck at 23 to 25 since One More Day.
Yep.
And
All
now
right.
he can finally be like older now with Spencer. But yeah.
All right. Am I doing Avengers?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Avengers No Road Home #9, almost done. Um, so open up. We finally get back to Blue Marvel, which I kind of forgot.
I forgot he was in this book.
He's reacting to all the massive blackouts as Nick's up the ante even more by taking out a bunch of stars. And he's got with him Living Lightning, who played a major role, I believe, in No Surrender.
He was almost the main character, actually.
He's got Ms. America, Tony Ho, Wasp, Pod, Gomi, and Bill the Lobster. I don't know what the hell those people are.
I have no idea who those people are.
And he makes he calls up Black Panther as well. And I guess this takes place alongside the vampire arc in Aaron's Avengers, which is likewise the arc before it starts tying into War of the Realms. So
Okay.
this whole series is before War of the Realms. And I'm not going to until I eventually read it in trades, but it would be interesting to look in the Aaron series and see if there's like one issue or even just a few pages where suddenly everything's black on Earth. That would be pretty great if that was the case. But it's basically
Girl and Rescue Joint Mission.
it's basically like Blue Marvel's like, all right, we're doing stuff, and then we cut back and don't see him again.
Yeah, it's literally one. It's the opening page, and that's it.
Euphoria finally gets on the scene as she appeared in Slot Silver Surfer as this like personification of a planet. And she's like, hey, who actually wants this stupid crystal? And so we have different characters kind of doing their like soliloquy kind of thing. Hercules, again, like a lot of the rest of this series, gets the spotlight. He's got a 9-panel, and I think it spills over into a page or two. And a lot of this, he's talking about like alcoholism and stuff, and that's referring back to Al Ewing's Hercules run immediately post Secret Wars. And so, I mean, the other writers are doing this too, but this book is basically just tying together literally everything Al Ewing has done at Marvel, besides like I guess his Loki run hasn't factored in.
Yeah.
It's just that's really great to see. Hawkeye talks about his hearing, which is again always cool. All the characters, you know, they get the unique aspects
Well,
of
he
them.
talks about his hearing and wanting the perfect shot, and then
Yeah.
later in this issue, he nails the perfect shot.
And Conan has a speech, um, just basically bitching, telling everyone how they're wrong.
No, it's directed right at the Vision.
Yeah. And then Banner says something, and I don't know. We're not supposed to be able to read that.
It's apparently really messed up, is what I'm guessing.
I guess, yeah. I think I guess it's supposed to be implied, like he's like, I want to fucking kill myself or something like that. And then Nick snaps at Euphoria, and she's like, I don't have time for this shit. And so then everything goes to hell. Everyone starts a fight again, and Rocket has the pin particles, so we get a giant rocket.
I like this because Hawkeye's been he's been looking for them for like the past 2 issues.
Yeah. And then Euphoria's like, all right, you're all gonna fight, I just give up. And Nyx just rips out her chest the crystal, and Nyx now has them all. And Voyager's like, hey, you didn't acknowledge me. Notice me, senpai.
Well,
And
yeah, she wants to be an Avenger.
and
That's what
so
Regina is, and then she gets to call out Avengers Assemble.
yeah, she says Avengers Assemble, sets up a portal, and now they're in Long Island.
Yeah, they just get transported to Long Island. And then
And
Tom Brevoort comes on the panel and tells us, well, that's weird.
yeah, I guess that's Brevoort. I was trying to figure out who it was. I'm not sure if it's Brevoort because Brevoort's a big guy. I'm not. This is someone cameoing.
Yeah.
It's a very obvious cameo, but it's not obvious who it is to me. I don't know. I mean, Ewing is a. I'm sure he might live here now, but he's a British guy. I wouldn't
It
expect.
might be Al Ewing. It might be Al Ewing.
And it turns out Nyx has showed up to a magic house, which we've seen before.
Yep.
And it's attached to like a literal, like bigger scope of God or something.
It's the House of the Creator, which can only make me think, are we gonna see what the embodiment of Stan Lee is in the next issue?
Well, that's what I was thinking. And then basically everyone fucking dies, but Hercules and Monica help Vision go through this door.
Yep.
And the finale is going to be oversized. And back to the house, each issue of this series has had like a 1-page like extra, like a behind the scenes thing, character models,
Yep.
editorial, something like that. For this, it's like story notes from their writers summit where they were like, all right, what are we going to do with this? And in the story notes, it's not really said in the story, but in the story notes, they refer to this house as the House of Ideas. So I think it could be related to Stan Lee or Jack Kirby or some kind of
I think we
Marvel,
might be seeing both of them.
some kind of meta thing, which should be interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited that like I said, we keep enjoying this, so it's great. It's going to be sad to see it end because it's been a book I look forward to every week. But
yeah, I mean, they'll probably do another one in like 6 months.
Hey, I'm down because they've been good. This has been great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. All right. Invaders. Is that me?
Yeah, because I want to. This issue make you angry?
Um.
I liked it. If I had a pick of the week, I'd choose this.
So I read Invaders #1, I believe, and I think it may have been before
I
we
picked
started.
Slack and read 2 and 3, and I said you have to read this one because it's the issue that's going to explain everything. It's the secret history of Namor.
Well, I read 1. I don't think I read 2. I don't remember, but I actually caught up on last issue. I read 3 at the same time as this, and so just very quickly to refresh myself, in 3, they were bringing up the stupid Secret Empire bullshit. But I thought there was an interesting concept where one of the civilians was talking about how the constant shitty heel and face turns leaves all the civilians in the crossfire. And the first issue had a footnote, or I think I might be caught up to the 4th one, but there's a footnote in one of these issues to John Burns' Submariner, name of the Submariner #1. There's a fish market named after Bill Everett, creator of the Submariner.
Yep.
And there's also a footnote to Submariner #1 from Stan Lee, the 1960s version.
Yeah, this issue has the footnote to the 1968 version.
So basically, Namor, he has a connection with this family because he fought with one of them in World War II, and he just hangs out with them. And he lives with this family after he regains his memories, I guess. And that's Fantastic Four.
Recuperated.
That's Fantastic Four #4 when he regained his memories. But he fights the X-Men in X-Men #6, only 2 years after Fantastic Four #4, and this is before he has any solo adventures again. And so that's a kind of tight gap. And so now back to what this issue actually covers. So one day Charles Xavier shows up and grabs him and is like, "Hey, you're a mutant. Come do stupid shit with me. Look for other mutants." And so we get the obligatory pre-giant size Wolverine cameo.
They love doing that, don't they?
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, a lot of them are in the movies, but I feel like this whole like Wolverine in the background while Charles Xavier is looking for people, we've probably seen 10 different versions of this.
Yeah, like I'm tired of it.
And they find a mutant who can change people's species. And Charles Xavier wants to use him to evolve humans into mutants, which is based on pretty much everything prior, totally out of character for Charles.
Yeah.
Then they Namor is like freaking out, and the kid gets shot.
Well,
And
Namor kind of lets him get shot because he knows that the government might
yeah,
just take him and
so much for that plan. Okay, cool. And then Namor starts freaking out, and so Charles forces him into a mindscape therapy session,
yeah, this follows up on elements from Invaders #2.
which actually just fucks his mind up more.
Yeah.
And then it's implied that this is how Namor lost his memories either again or from the first time.
Well, it's implied that he lost his memories in a fight with that one villain, possibly the atomic bomb, and that other in the Marvel Comics Presents issue, maybe. Um, and then here from getting mind wiped from Professor X.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing is without I mean there are the footnotes, but without more footnotes or more explanation and everything like that, I don't entirely understand how the timeline has changed and where this Charles Xavier bit fits in Namor's continuity. So, like maybe one of these mind losses is referring to the short 50s era revival of the Marvel characters. They could have made that explanation, but they don't. I don't know. But back to the present plot. Um, Bucky, Human Torch, and Cap, they were looking into the ship, which was building weapons to attack Atlantis or to defend from Atlantis. And it turns out it's an inside job. And the kid of the family that Namor's friends with is working on the ship. And he's going to attack Atlantis, but like as a false flag operation so that Namor retaliates and attacks the ship. And on the ship, Bucky gets Dick Graysoned. That's how I put it.
Yeah, this is weird because he just gets shot right in the back of the head.
Yeah, so
I was like, is Bucky dead again?
Yeah, R.I.P. Bucky stands. He is dead. I don't want to see him ever again. He got shot in the back of the head with blood all over.
Well, we do see a little bit of blood, but not all over.
I mean, he's definitely not dead, but he should be dead based on how he got shot and everything. But I don't know. I'm very much of two minds in this. I love the Butch Geist art. It's amazing. I love when they actually get into the character moments and like actually referring to the war and the relationship that that four characters have, and Namor's kind of psychological issues and connection with this family, PTSD basically, and everything like that. But the Charles Xavier part and the present part with the villainous Namor in the stupid costume, I don't really have any interest in, and a lot of it annoys me. And I don't really like the Carlo Magno art.
I like the Magno art. I think it's pretty good. I still like this book. I thought this issue was pretty good. And I still think this is like a mini series, so I am wondering how this is all going to end. But weird that we talked about Bucky this week because the final book we're going to talk about is Winter Soldier #5, the conclusion to Kyle Higgins and Rod Reese's miniseries. with RJ, the possible little Bucky sidekick, but also kid that was trained by Hydra. Last issue, I guess to give you the crux of this, Bucky is teamed up with Sharon Carter to start a foundation op to rehabilitate and relocate like villains that want to go straight, like Hydra agents and people like that, because Bucky wants to do that because that's how he feels he can help people since he's gone straight after being bad for a little bit when he was the Winter Soldier. Okay, fine, whatever. Interesting premise. He's since run into this kid named RJ who's been trained by the Hydra to kill him, and they've kind of developed a little bit of a friendship. But the last issue, RJ's dad has come back into his life, and it turns out that he's a horrible, like he's not actually going to go straight. He lied, and Bucky and his dad had a confrontation in a back alley at the end of the last issue, and his dad slipped and broke his neck. So Bucky's got to get rid of the body. And his plan is just to bury it and not tell RJ, which is a horrible plan. So Sharon Carter talks him out of it, and they're going to put the body on ice until he's ready to tell RJ. But RJ is confronted by by the guy who trained him in Hydra and manipulated him. But he shows him the pictures, and he wrestles with him, and he ends up confronting Bucky, and he's like, "Hey, you weren't who you said you are." He leaves him, and he ends up beating up Bucky, but Bucky doesn't fight back because he tries to still wants to help him. And RJ starts crying because he's not a killer. He's not gonna do that. But he ends up killing the guy who trained him at the end of this book with a giant light machine gun, and runs away crying as Bucky contemplates what he's going to do next, as RJ has pretty much left his life. But he gets a call, and it's, "How can I help you?" As he's going to continue on. This is it. And the funny part is the end of this book is follow Winter Soldier's ongoing adventures every month in Invaders. But he just got shot in the back of the head, so I don't think we're going to be following many more adventures of Bucky Barnes.
Rip.
I thought this series was okay. I thought it ended pretty anticlimactically, and everything got resolved pretty fast. The art in this book has been very good. A lot of Phil Noto vibes to me from Rod Reese's art. I like Kyle Higgins. I enjoyed his Nightwing run. Gates of Gotham. From the small amount I've read of his Power Ranger stuff, I've enjoyed that. But I don't think he has anything else planned right now, comic-wise. I think he's going to be directing his first film soon. At least that's what I read or gathered from Twitter. So this might be the last time we see Kyle Higgins in comics for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I did see that news quickly. I believe he's adapting and directing his own indie book called Hadrian's Wall, which I believe is like kind of a sci-fi type of book.
Yeah, I think he's been spending almost half a decade trying to get it off the ground.
But the pretty interesting that he's going to be able to direct it. Who knows how the hell he got that figured out? I'm not sure if maybe it's a smaller budget and he's behind a lot of it, because I'm assuming it's not a bigger studio thing, and because they wouldn't let a comic book writer direct it. That would be very unusual. But wish him the best of luck.
Yeah, I always liked his work. I thought I still say, I know it's the bad red costume and we all hate it, but his Nightwing run for the New 52 is a really solid run.
Yeah, there's a lot of good Nightwing, so I'm not in a rush to read it.
No. It's I do say it's worth reading though. It also helps that Nightwing was his like favorite character, so we got to work on that. But I thought he wrote a pretty good, I think 27 issue run on Nightwing. I own all of it, so I did enjoy it. But yeah, I thought this Winter Soldier book ended up wrapping up pretty fast, and kind of all right. I was kind of left going, "Oh, all right, well, that's it." But I'm sure hopefully someone takes the reins of RJ and we see him show up somewhere else because you spent 5 issues building him up, and I feel like this would be weird if this is the final time we see him. Not that I didn't really love the character, but I thought that would be weird that that's just his exit to this. But I think people have been reading. I saw some comments online about how they might want to see him end up in Champions or something. And I was like, that might be a good spot for him, but we'll see.
Does he have powers and stuff?
No, he's just a trained he was trained from like a young age as a Hydra agent,
Okay.
an operative. Like he was specifically designed to kill Bucky.
Does he have a costume?
Yeah, he has like a little like it's a Bucky costume
Okay.
because he was dressing like Bucky. But yeah, I thought this series was okay. Only 5 issues. Check it out. I'm sure the trade will be on shelves within the end of the month or something like that.
For $19.99 or something.
$17.99 usually is what trades. Or no, it's a 5 issue trade, so they'll throw in some old reprint in the back to make it 6 issues.
Who knows? Thanks for watching this episode. Ran through a lot of books, had some news, had some haul. Next episode seems like we're gonna have a lot of books.
Dude, next episode, I counted. I have like 12 books.
So it'll be an action-packed week. Tune in for that, and also tune in for our discussion of Elementals number 15. So bye-bye.
Somewhere, hopefully later this weekend, the first episode of No Man's Land happening.
Yep, watch out for that. Peace.
Take care.